Hey guys, it's Heather from Tomatoes, Poppies, and Everything Gardening. Today is March the 18th. It is week 3 for my seedlings, my summer plants. I've got tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, some flowers, a few herbs, mostly basil. It is time to turn off the lights and take off my reflector that protects our eyes as we're walking through here in the kitchen. It also reflects the light for the plants. And we're going to take a peek and see what these guys look like at week 3. 21-ish days old. Some are younger because remember I started some a week or so behind the original batch. I did get a lot of tomatoes potted up last week. Took me a few days. Now for this week, we are going to have to start potting up peppers and making some changes. And we'll talk about that. Let's go outside so we can have a better look. But just a few key points. I'm still bottom watering. If my plants were not going outside, they would be having multiple sessions with an oscillating fan every day. And definitely grow lights at least 12 to 16 hours a day. Thankfully, my guys have had a lot of outdoor time. It's been pretty nice during the day. So you can see they're vibrant and green and sturdy and strong because they've been exposed to the wind quite a bit this week. We're definitely getting some wind movement here, which is great. Getting some nice sun exposure. And again, remember, my seedlings have been exposed to natural daylight outdoors from the moment they emerge from their seed, for the most part. And so they are very much acclimated to the sun. Now, a couple guys do have a little bit of sun scald, sun damage. But honestly, I think it's from my lights indoors from being way too close because I do keep mine awful close. But in general, they look nice and green and happy and healthy. So what we're going to do now is a final count. As I pot things up, I move them over to the right side of the page and update the final count. So the ones still on the left, those need to get potted up. And as I determine the final germination rate, I will move the plant over to the right side of the page and put the count so I know exactly how many plants of each variety that I have available. Most of the tomatoes have been potted up at this point, so for all of the peppers I'm going to be using these smaller little I guess 1/16 trays. I think there are 16 cells in each tray. Because the peppers are still relatively small, I should have started them 2 weeks before my tomatoes. I tell myself that every year. I really need to put it into practice. So they will be good to go into this little small cell tray for about 1 to 2 weeks. And then at that point, I will put them, the peppers and eggplants, into the smaller size solo cup. So it's not as big as a red solo cup. My tomatoes will go into a red solo cup. This is like, I think 3 or 4 ounce size. And that's about right for a small pepper plant because they are much slower to grow than a tomato. This one tray is going to hold 64 pepper plants. We may need to use another half tray, maybe 2 total. I'm thinking 1.5 though, trays. I guess we'll have to see because I am going to put the little baby basils in as well. So we might actually use 2 full trays with 64 cells each. You can see there's lots of peppers. There's some tomatoes that were started much later. I'd say a week to week and a half after the original guys, which are those guys. So they are smaller. Some of the peppers are really starting to come along. They're starting to get their true leaves, which is cool. And I do have peppers at various stages of germination. For an example, this pocket here of California Wonder, you've got some that have true leaves coming out, and then some that are just barely germinating. So I don't really like the spotty germination, but there's not a lot I can do about it because they kind of are on their own timeline. I can just encourage them, you know, with the heat, the warmth, keeping the soil moist during germination. But yeah, they kind of did their own thing this year, and I'm just grateful that I do have germination on my peppers. And I'm ready to go ahead and make our final tally so I know what I'm working with for this summer. If you have watched the last 2 weeks in my 2025 seed starting series, you'll know that I did an experiment with winter sowing the exact same pepper and tomato seeds. So I put tangerine pepper seeds on this side and early girl tomato seeds on this side. These are the peppers from indoor sowing. There are no peppers germinated in this winter sowing container. The early girl, there are none germinated. Now the early girls are somewhere in this mist, so you can see that they did germinate. They did grow extremely well. I had really awesome germination. 10 out of 10 seeds germinated, and this Tangerine Dream did really well too. Let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'm sure I only put about 8 or 9 seeds in there. So you can see the difference. I'm going to go ahead and end this experiment because I don't know, I just am. I think I am. Maybe I won't. But there's a huge time gap there. Now these guys could sprout tomorrow. This is about the time you would probably so-called winter sow if you were doing warm weather crops like tomatoes and peppers when it's starting to get warm. So I started these guys 3 weeks ago. Well, more like 2.5. Let's say 2.5 weeks ago. These were both started 2.5 weeks ago. Look at the difference. I don't know. I'm just so far not had great experience winter sowing nightshades. So I'm probably not going to do it again, although I probably will do this experiment again at some point. I may just stick this off to the side somewhere. Maybe something will germinate. Maybe they will do great. I will update you on that, but so far, not impressed. And so for bottom watering, all I do is I put water into the bottom of the tray, like so. Leave the plants in place for about 20-ish minutes. Let them absorb all that they want to. And then after the 20 minutes, which I'm really close to time right now, I will just drain that into a pot somewhere. And these guys will be watered. You can see the roots coming through the bottom there, which is awesome. So definitely these guys here on the right in the purple trays, starting maybe this weekend coming up, by Monday-ish, Monday, Tuesday at the latest, they will need to go into a solo cup. For the next 3 to 4 days, we're going to be working on getting these guys potted into their tiny little temporary home until they go into a 3 to 4 ounce size cup for, you know, donation, selling, and or giveaway, and also for myself. I need a few plants too, right? Can y'all guess which one of these basils is my favorite? Yes, it's that cutie that's a purple ruffled basil with just a defect where it does have some green in it, and I love it when it's... So what about fertilizing? Now is the time we're going to think about it, and I would say yes, week 3 going into week 4. So we're really going to think about it, and probably by next Tuesday we need to make a decision if it's time to go ahead and fertilize these guys over here. And I will do the exact same thing. I will make a potion, water, and very, very diluted liquid fertilizer. And I will just put it at the bottom of the tray, let the guys sit there, 20 minutes or so. And then they will have their treatment of food. Y'all, I just made a major mistake, and I doubt if I can recover from it. So I had made her sandwich on the left, Kellogg's breakfast on the right, and I had the tray turned, and I just started taking them out. Did not divide them, did not keep track of who was who. And so now they're all mixed up. That is not good. So they're either going to be orange or red. But I really, really wanted to know which was which. And they both have a very similar leaf structure. This is not good. I really don't think I can tell them apart. Maybe. No, probably not. These guys are slightly taller. The Kellogg's breakfast germinated first. So I'm kind of hoping, I don't know, can you see these are slightly taller? I'm hoping these are all Kellogg's breakfast and these are the Mater sandwiches. There's really no way to tell other than going by the height, and it's a very minuscule difference. Goodness. Well, I learned a lesson. So it looks like I did things a little smarter over on this tray by actually labeling the individual trays. but that was only because I had so many of a mixed variety in that tray. Definitely from now on, I'm gonna label each individual cell tray. All right, so these are the early girls that I started, I don't know, let's say 4 or 6 days later than the other tomatoes. And you can see they germinated, they grew, compared to what we looked at earlier in the winter sowing experiment. It is the next morning. They did come in last night because we got down to like 35 last night. Can you believe it? And then tonight we're going to be 52 for a low. So I think the guys in the purple trays will actually spend the night, not those guys, these guys, in my little greenhouse tonight, just so they can start getting some nights outdoors at night above 50. And they actually will stay probably in the range of 55 to almost 60 in that little greenhouse at night when it's closed. Now this tray, I'm not going to take outside today. It took me, felt like hours to get this whole tray done. But these guys could be a little bit in some shock today after that up-potting, transplanting. So they're just going to hang out in the house today. I will move them up to the top once I take these guys outside. And so when I was editing this video, I thought I was almost done with this video, but then I was looking at these tomatoes, the ones that we need to start thinking about feeding, fertilizing. Some of them were starting to look a little hungry. So I'm gonna go ahead, take them outside for the day. I'm gonna mix up my fertilizing potion, and then we're gonna feed them. And that is something you probably would need to do in week 3 leading up to week 4. Once your seedlings have some true leaves, they're going to start to get hungry. And for this tray mix up, remember the Mater sandwich and the Kellogg's breakfast. What I am going to do is, while I was editing, I was zooming in on right before I took these guys out of the tray. I'm going to use some clues from that to try to determine which plants go together. And I'm starting to kind of look at some of the leaf structure. So like this one seems to have a different leaf than this one. So I'm thinking maybe these two don't go together, but then I look at some of the other leaves and they look exactly the same. So I don't know. I don't know if there's any hope for this situation. If you have grown either one of these, Mater sandwich or Kellogg's breakfast, and you recognize any telltale signs, I mean, they pretty much are looking way too much alike. This one kind of has like an odd shaped leaf, kind of like maybe a hybrid is what I'm thinking, but then this guy kind of has the same leaf, so maybe this goes over there. I don't know. I could drive myself nuts trying to figure this out. Looking at the leaves is literally driving me nuts. So I'm instead kind of looking at stem length. Remember, the Kellogg's breakfast was the first to germinate. All of these stems here now on the right seem to be about the same height, and the ones on the left seem to be similar size. So I'm hopeful I got it right. Maybe I don't, but there is definitely a little bit of a height difference between these two guys. Hopefully I don't have some angry customers. I do have 2 orders already from my husband's work, 10 plants each. I'm sure I'll have more coming soon. And then remember, we need at least 50 plants for the food bank. And I probably need about 50 plants for myself too, total. That includes peppers and eggplants. Yeah, I just hope I don't disappoint anyone who really wanted a red tomato and they end up with a beautiful orange tomato. So this is what I'm going with. Is it just my imagination, or do the ones on the right look similar color and the ones on the left are all similar color? I'm hoping these are the Kellogg's breakfast, because they're older. They would be hungrier faster, right? These just look a little darker and richer. So I'm hopeful I got it right. Now is not the time to try out anything new as far as liquid fertilizer. I did that last year and I really paid for it. If you go back to 2024 weekly seedling updates around week 3, you'll see that I had major issues with the fertilizer I tried last year. Even though I did the directions, I followed the directions, it burned my plants where I had put down the fertilizer, and it was just a big mess. I did lose quite a few seedlings that way. So I've been using this general hydroponics. I think I bought my first bottle probably 5 years ago. This is my second bottle. It lasts forever. So 2 bottles purchased in 5 years, and there's quite a bit left in this one. All we're going to do today, I follow the directions on the back. 1 gallon of water, a half a teaspoon of the liquid fertilizer, and that's all we're going to do. Then we're going to take this outside after we shake it really well. We're going to pour, let's say, 1 inch to 2 inch liquid into the bottom of the trays, and then we're going to let them sit for about 15-20 minutes, see if it's absorbed, and then our seedlings will be fed for the week. Maybe we can stretch it to 2 weeks since they're going to get potted up sometime in the next, I'd say 3 to 5 days. These seedlings we're going to feed today will be potted up into the big solo cup. So they probably will not get fed because I will be using new potting mix. But then maybe the next week after potting up, they're going to get hungry again. And we're going to do the same thing with our very, very diluted liquid fertilizer. And this is it. Literally just a half a teaspoon. It doesn't look like much, but trust me, that will be plenty. I'm going to get this mixed really well. So we're going to feed these guys. And if you haven't started hardening off your plants yet, if your weather is nice, if you're able, I would suggest the sooner you start, the better, the easier it is on your plants, instead of waiting to week 5 or 6 and, trying to rush it like in a week. It would be more gentle on your plants to slowly acclimate them. Even if you're just starting now, start with shade, then, slowly build up to part sun, low part sun, and then maybe a little bit more part sun, and slowly increase the time. And over the course of many days, a week or so, ideally maybe a week to 2 weeks. It's going to be a slow process, and then eventually you will work your way up to more full sun. It's still going to be really hard on them, so just take your time, go slow. If you can start early, that's great. And when you get to the point where you are putting your plants directly in sunlight with no protection, no shade, maybe start with morning sun, which is more gentle than, say, harsh afternoon sun, which can be a little hard on your plants. I had mine out here yesterday afternoon. I was hot, so I knew they were having a little bit of issues, so I did take them in early yesterday afternoon. Morning is more ideal, and these guys are still small. They don't have many leaves, so we don't want to damage all of their precious new growth. But mine are doing okay. Yes, a few little spots of sun scald here and there, but I think they'll be okay. So now it's time to feed. You can see how diluted the gallon looks, and that's perfect. And remember, that's just half a teaspoon in a whole gallon. Now read the directions on whatever fertilizer you're using. It could be different. Maybe even whatever they recommend, cut that in half. If they say half a teaspoon, maybe the first feeding just use a quarter in a whole gallon and see how your plants react. Because I did have some issues last year for sure. Because, yeah, that was really rough. And I learned my lesson. And so part 2 of my lesson that I learned last year, other than don't try out new stuff without like really diluting it, is do not pour directly onto your seedlings. Do not pour directly into that seedling cup. Go ahead, lift your plant, fill it. We'll do that here in a second. Then put your plant back. Let it absorb. Do not directly overhead pour that fertilizer. I did that last year with that fertilizer that was really way too potent, and I had a lot of plants die. For reference, this is what I have left between the 4 trays. Now, after about 15-20 minutes, if there's a lot of liquid left at the bottom of the tray, I'll probably just dump it right on that cabbage. All right, well, I think that was enough for this week. You know what my plan is for the week. Your plan could be different. You could be farther along. You could be just started a couple weeks ago. Probably, depending on where you live, it's getting a little late to start peppers. I do think you could go ahead and start tomatoes. I have even seen stores sell plugs or very small starts about this size. You could technically put a plant that size into the ground. And so these plants are only 3 weeks old. So you definitely have time to start some tomatoes, maybe even peppers if you get them to germinate super duper quick. It'll depend on how many calendar months you have to grow warm weather crops. I have a pretty long growing season, usually until the end of October. I will still have peppers producing. Tomatoes usually are full of disease by then, but you could do a second round, and I think I will do that this year, especially with the determinates. All right, guys, well, I hope you're having a great gardening week, and I will talk to you really soon. Bye.